Deonn Stott is back, and she's here to show us how to piece triangles into your quilt. So welcome, Deonn.
Thank you. I always love coming here. It's so much fun.
Well, we always love having you, and we worked on these rectangles and our squares in our previous tutorial. And so today you're going to talk about triangles.
Well, today we're going to make 3 blocks, and we don't need much fabric to do it.
So which 3 blocks?
We'll make a shoe fly, a friendship star, and an Ohio star. And they use half square triangles and quarter square triangles, and we'll explore just some fun ways to make those, some quick ways to make lots of them at the same time.
So we're going to work on 3 different quilt blocks.
3 different blocks, 3 or 4 different methods.
Okay, perfect.
So
well, let's get started.
Okay, so in Grandma's day, she used to cut out her cereal box and make a template and then trace her pieces on the fabric and then cut them out with scissors. But with the rotary blade and ruler, we can cut our triangles really fast and really efficiently. But can you imagine if you had to cut all of these little teeny weeny pieces just to make one little block? There are a lot faster ways to put together this kind of a block. And so let's take the same 2 pieces, we'll put these aside for now, same 2 pieces, and we're going to create 2 blocks out of 2 squares. Okay?
And a quicker method.
A much quicker method. So your task is to draw a diagonal line on the back of the square. And you can use any kind of marker that you like.
And I love this. This is by a brand Pilot, and it is disappearing ink. So once you iron it, it disappears. But it makes a nice dark mark that you can easily see.
Well, that's fun. We'll have to try that when we press it.
It'll disappear once we press it.
We want to draw, this is our cutting line. But we don't want to cut this apart yet. We want to stitch on it first, and that is because of this diagonal, that bias edge. We don't want to distort that while we're sewing. So right sides together with the line up, and then you're going to stitch 1/4 of an inch away from that line on both sides of the line, and then the line is our cutting line.
So if you've got a foot that's 1/4 inch, you got to have that. You're going to put that right there and stitch along.
That's right. There is one other thing that we could do. Put a piece of tape at the 1/4 inch line, and maybe I'll demonstrate that with some painter's tape here. Okay, pretend this is your stitching line, your standard stitching line. Here's where the needle is. And if we have a piece of tape on the sewing machine, this painter's tape works great because it's removable. So there's the center line of where the needle will go, and here's the 1/4 inch away from the center line.
That you're just going to put on your next to your needle.
If you line this up so that your diagonal line is following that 1/4 inch line, then your needle will stitch 1/4 inch away. And as you come up, you can keep your eye here.
To make sure it's...
Right, so it's still stitching 1/4 of an inch as it goes through the sewing machine.
And then you just flip it over. And again, you have to remind yourself, this is not the stitching line.
Right.
That's what you're supposed to do. Pull it 1/4 inch over and just follow along the tape if you don't have the foot. So we have this block that we've already sewn, and we've got our 2 stitching lines, 1/4 inch on either side of the line we marked.
Right. So now our next step is to just cut it in half.
Okay.
Just
make sure we lined up. Okay. So we've got our 2 blocks.
Okay. So now we've made 2 half square triangle blocks. Isn't that great? Just
so
with 2 squares.
These.
Right. So we'll press these and go ahead. We'll sink the stitches in just like we did before and press it so that the seam allowance goes toward the dark fabric.
Don't worry about trimming those later.
Right, we'll use those in our quarter square triangle blocks, so we'll, good. We'll just set those aside. Okay, I'm going to show you another method which is way fun. And you start with 2 larger blocks, and we're going to do some inside-out sewing. In other words, we're going to stitch all the way around the outside, and then we'll cut it apart.
Okay.
And we'll make 4 blocks at the same time.
So when you stitch, you go off the seam?
Yeah, just stitch a 1/4 inch all the way around.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we've stitched around all 4 sides.
All right, so now we'll cut a diagonal line from point to point twice. So basically you're cutting an X. And you don't want to move the fabric after you've made that first cut.
So
just
it doesn't?
leave the fabric there, and then can you get your arm around there?
Test your cutting skills.
Okay, so now we've made 4 half square triangle units.
No time at all.
Right.
Look at that. So we'll press these.
Yes, and a thing about this is that the straight edge, or the outside edge, is the straight grain, and the inside edges, in other words, what becomes the outside edges of this piece, is now bias. So you really have to be careful because those edges can distort. So maybe a little starch or a little sizing while you're pressing, and that'll help so those don't stretch when you're sewing.
That's a great tip.
Isn't that fun? We've just made 4 half square triangles at the same time. Okay, so we'll press those, save those for later. And now I want to show you my very favorite thing, and that's to make 8 half square triangles at the same time. So remember, we had 2 small squares, and we drew a diagonal line on the background, and we got 2 squares out of it. Well, what if you double that measurement and cut 2 large squares? Now we're going to draw a diagonal line, a diagonal X on this one. We'll get a bigger ruler here.
Yes, we will need a bigger ruler.
Then we'll stitch on both sides of the line on the on both lines. Okay, careful not to distort your fabric. Good.
Yeah, you can just feel that pull of the bias as you're...
Yeah. Okay. So we can pin that if you want, just so the edges don't slip, and then go ahead and stitch on both sides of each of these lines in an X.
And again, this is, you're stitching on this side, then you're going to stitch on this side. All right. Okay, so we've stitched our 2 on each side of the line, so we've got 4 stitches.
Right. Okay, now to cut it, we're going to cut it on those diagonal lines, but we're also going to cut it in half, vertically and horizontally. So this is an 8-inch block. Let's cut it 4 inches this way and 4 inches that way.
Let's see. They're all lined up. Look good to you?
Yeah, and you can see where it kind of intersects those lines right in the center of it.
So we want to get it right on that center.
Okay, while it's still there, then we'll cut it in half the other direction. Good. And then cut your diagonal lines too.
And you just are careful not to move anything. That just shifted ever so slightly.
Right from point to point. And the other direction too.
This is going to give us a lot of blocks, isn't it?
We've just made all of the triangles that we need for 2 blocks. So each one of these is a perfect half square triangle. So we were a little generous with our measurements when we made this, made all these, and we have a little bit that we need to trim off.
Okay.
And so you can use a little square up ruler, and this one has a diagonal line marked on it, so you can follow that along and then trim it to the size you need. And most people have a ruler with some kind of a diagonal on it, a 45-degree angle. Here's a tool that I just love, and it's by Quilt in a Day, Eleanor Burns.
Love Eleanor.
She's a doll, isn't she?
Yes.
Well, she made this fun triangle square up ruler, and the markings on it follow the stitching lines that you've
What a
just
great
stitched.
idea.
So if you put her stitching lines, we want these to all square up at 3.5 inches.
Okay, and it says 3.5 right there.
Right here, and then if you line that up, let's see here. If you line that up just right over the stitches, well, first you can see how straight your stitches are.
So you line the 3.5 on the stitches,
Right
and
on
it
the
shows you
stitching line.
exactly how much to trim.
Right, and if you place
Perfect.
that to the right with the point pointing to the right, you hold it down and then you can trim all 4 sides.
You can just do a
Just
little demo
in
of that.
this. Okay. So the stitches are lined up, and then
That is a great tool.
trim this side, this side. All 4 sides are done, and it might not be much. You know, we just gave a little bit of extra. And then you trim these little dog ears off. You're ready to press. So I would do this before we press.
on each block.
And then go ahead and take it and press it like normal.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, do we have any more blocks to assemble, or should we just press all over?
Actually, we're just going to, we've created all these blocks, and let's get those pressed, trimmed first,
we'll
and
trim
then pressed.
first.
And then we'll lay them out and get them all ready to sew up.
Okay. We'll get to work.
All right, so we have all these trimmed and pressed, and now we're ready to put them in our blocks and sew up our blocks. And here's my little...
And this is a great invention, and we are going to show a tutorial on this. What do you call this?
Well, it's my UFO to go, or it's a portable design wall, and in it I've laid out the layout that we're going to use for both of the blocks that we're going to make right now with the half square triangles. So if you'll grab a stack of those, 4 of them, then we'll make a shoe fly block on this side by putting a half square triangle in the corners facing the center. And these are 3.5-inch squares that are laid out. Okay, and now this one's a friendship star, and so these triangles lay out so that they're going to spin in a circle of their way, so that yeah,
like that. There we go.
Okay, great. So we're ready to take it to the sewing machine, sew them up. And if we want a chain piece, then my same method. I always put the right over left, put a pin in the right upper right hand corner.
To remind you which is which.
And if we don't have time to do this project right now, we can just
This
roll it up. And
is brilliant.
This laminate doesn't stick to it.
And I'm sure everyone's going to want to tune back in and figure out how to make this.
Yeah,
because
isn't that great?
I usually put mine in a bag, and they don't, when you're pulling everything out, they're not all neat and tidy.
So we'll leave the right side, right column here.
Okay, so we'll pin these.
Okay, and I'm going to stack them from top to bottom, so when we put them in the sewing machine, we come back, we lay them out. They'll be in the same order that we took them to the sewing machine in. Great.
All right,
Here's
let's go.
this stack. All right, so we'll...
Okay, we did our strip.
Our little chain piecing.
Quilting.
Why don't you put the seam allowance right here, and then we'll open it up.
Oh, sorry. Gotta flip it over.
Yeah. And it's in place where it needs to be. And there's your star again. Good.
There it is.
And
So
then
we're
we'll
gonna
do the same thing. We'll fold that right side over left, secure it before we move it.
And this, I think the biggest tip I'm taking away from this is pin it, because I've been taught this before, and I think I forgot to pin the corner that I need to begin on.
You know, it's so easy to get this turned around by the time you pick it
Yeah.
up and move it
So
to the
I
sewing
think
machine.
pinning really is the key to doing this right.
And it's always my little hint. The corner that I pin it is the corner that goes in the sewing machine first. Okay, so take that to the sewing machine.
We'll finish this
Right.
block.
Okay,
we got our chain piecing blocks.
right, and they're still hooked together, so
Yes,
nobody's gone
easy
anywhere.
to put together.
Okay, so now before we sew these last two seams, we want to press this. And we'll alternate the seams so
we
that
can nestle them.
so they nestle, right, and then it'll fit together perfectly and those corners will be sharp.
So these
That's
will
our
press
first task.
out,
Okay,
and these will press in.
Mhm.
And we'll just do every other.
okay,
Okay, we'll press this.
okay. So on this one, we're going to press these so that they go under. And this one will go out. It's a little tricky because these are still hooked together.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so we'll do that with the whole block, and so that they alternate. Okay. And then this side too. And then they're ready to pin and sew up quick. All right. There you go.
So you're pinning yours.
I'm nestling those corners, kissing the corners, so that those seams alternate. Then we just have two seams on each of these blocks, and they're done.
Okay, so you nestle them just right here. And we're just going to have perfect intersections, aren't we?
It makes me very happy.
I'll pin this one.
Mhm.
This one's a little snug.
Then I'm going to pin the top and the bottom too, just to keep them straight. And then that's ready to put in the sewing machine. Great.
And you like to pin the ends?
Just to keep them straight.
All right, I think we're
Okay.
ready to finish these blocks.
Super.
So here is our beautiful blocks.
Okay, so we just press those seams.
And look at our corners. All
Oh, I know,
lined
aren't
up.
they pretty?
It's a thing, really a thing of beauty.
It is.
So let's press, and we're done with these blocks.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. We can add them to our pile. Okay. Go ahead.
Like that.
Yeah. Super. Okay, we have one more block to work on, and we can lay out the center. It'll lay out just exactly like the friendship star with the white on the corners.
White on the corners,
Mhm.
okay.
And then we'll use those first half square triangles that we started with today.
Okay.
Okay. Super. Just
Move
move
that,
that
out
out of the way. Okay, so for these, we're going to follow the same process that we used for a half square triangle, only now it's already pieced part way. And then we're going to layer right sides together, nestling that seam. And we'll draw a diagonal line and stitch on both sides of the line and make our quarter square.
So we're going to
triangles.
do a line right here. Get our magic pen. And then we're going to do our
stitch
stitching.
on both sides of the line.
Okay. Okay, so we did 2 sets of these. Marked our line and did our stitching.
Okay, now we'll
And
cut
we're
them
ready
apart.
So we can
And,
use one of these
yeah.
small rulers. Actually, we'll use this one. That's probably. And then.
Great, and the same for the other
Yeah.
one. So we have 2 sets of these quarter square triangles. And now we have 4 units.
There
But
we go.
remember that on our squares lesson, wherever an intersection, 4 pieces intersect, we can do that magic twist. So we can make those seam allowances fan out and reduce the bulk in that center.
Oh,
So if you'll grab it the way that you've
great idea with the.
sewn it and then make a little 4 patch there. Then we'll take it to the iron, press that little 4 patch open, fan our seams and trim these. Oh, you know what? Actually, let's trim these first with Eleanor Burns' fun ruler again. So we still want the 3.5 inch line, but this time we can use that center line to align right against our stitches this way and this way. And then trim that up, and then we're ready to, okay. Let's see my glasses here. Okay, so that center line is right over those stitches, and then this dotted line is right over the center stitches. Trim them both at the same time.
That is such a handy tool.
Isn't that great? And we'll press these and get them all ready. Okay, so all we have to do now is just trim off those little
Trim
dog
off
ears.
those little. Just flip those around real fast. We can start assembling our last block. Well, last block today, right?
Well, we have a couple more to go, but we've made 3 today.
3 different ones.
Okay. And that will be our Ohio star.
Okay, so we've got this block done. We just need to go pin it, sew it, press it, and we'll bring it back here. Right, so we've finished this last quilt block we're doing today.
Isn't that great? We've got quite a stack going here,
Yes,
don't
we
we?
do.
Well, I have a present for you.
You do. I
Yes.
love presents. And you're too good to me. Thank
Oh.
you. Oh, look at this. And it matches my bag.
Isn't this great?
I'm so color
It's,
coordinated.
This is the deluxe version of the design wall, and we have an extra
look at
layer
that.
of fleece in the center of it. So
And
we
you
could lay out
just-
all of our blocks.
And this is a Pelham product. So,
Right.
so we can put all our blocks in here.
Yeah, let's see what they look like. All put
Brilliant
together.
idea. And what an
So-
easy way to port your quilting blocks that they'll stay all nice.
Got these 3. Let's see, we have 7, don't we?
So you're just going to lay them all out in
Yeah.
each spot? Okay.
Uh-huh.
And put that there. Then we can put some on the back,
Oh, true.
like that.
You can load this thing up
Great idea.
and roll it up. And it's portable.
That's smart.
And it's got these little
You even
elastics
got those.
that fit around the button. Tie that up and you're
Oh, I am so
ready to go.
organized. Deonn, thank you
Oh,
so
you're welcome.
much. And we will have a tutorial on this later. We have two more quilt blocks to do to finish our quilt. Then we'll do this tutorial, and we are set for quilting. So thanks for coming today.
You're welcome.